following is a live copyrighted presentation. Ladies and gentlemen, it's time now for RadioLawTalk.com with your host, Frederick Penny, attorney at law. And now, RadioLawTalk.com.
Welcome to the most exciting, entertaining, and informative talk show, game host, fun, flubber-gusted time in the world, this radio station. What are we? It's been so long since I've been on here, I don't even know what to say anymore. Welcome to Radio Law Talk. I'm your host, Frederick Penny, with Todd Cunin and Denise Dirks and Cal Hunter. I love being here.
Welcome to Adventures in Grammar, hosted by Fred Penny. Welcome back, Fred.
The host is back. I was only off 1 week, and I can't even remember what to say. But
just pick a word and stick with it, Fred. It's all good.
I am having so much fun. I'm really excited to have Denise back. She's been gone for 2 weeks. And
Three.
Just 3 weeks?
It was
3
3
Saturdays.
weeks.
She is
Yes.
like the... I'm going to call her the foundation of the guy standing on top of the foundation, and that's exactly what it is. She's the rock here. She's the smart one, but yet we act like we're smart, both Cal and I, and Todd doesn't. He is
But listeners know better.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Hey, but you know what? We're going to have a lot of fun today. If you want to call in, 855-LAW-RADIO, tweet us at Radio Law Talk. We got a lot of fun and interesting things. When I say fun, a lot of the stuff isn't fun, quite frankly, because it's legal issues. But just remember, we do try to make fun of some of it to entertain you a little bit, because you know what? We're trying to beat those really interesting alien shows, because those are the best shows around. We're trying to be number one instead of number two behind the alien shows. And you know what, Denise, I haven't told you this. I don't think you know this. I don't remember if I emailed you, but today is a very exciting day for Todd Cunin. He doesn't even know what I'm going to say.
I don't.
But it is one of the most exciting days that he has ever had. Remember, Todd is single. Those of you ladies, he's available at 800 I don't need girl.com.
Todd has a kid.
He's got kitties. That's it. But here's an interesting thing about Todd. And Todd is a former prosecutor for the DA's office in California and Tennessee.
Yes.
Ready for this, Todd? Here we go.
Okay.
Hold on. New affiliate, WSGI, 1100 AM, Springfield, Tennessee. We are now in Tennessee.
Yes, we are. Springfield, I remembered seeing that. That's just north of Nashville. And outstanding to be on the airwaves in the great state of Tennessee. I was born and raised in California. I can tell you right now that it was tough to leave Tennessee to come back to California. Was married at the time. There were certain economic reasons, but I did not want to leave. We were in Northeast Tennessee. Did not want to leave Tennessee. I loved the state. And, you know, if I am ever fortunate enough to have enough cash that I can retire instead of working till my end of my days, I would go back to the state of Tennessee. And for a tip for you attorneys out there, if you have more than 5 years of experience, this was the case back in 2007 when I went, if you have more than 5 years of experience in your jurisdiction and you've been actively practicing for 5 years, you don't have to take the bar in Tennessee. You can be admitted on a motion, even if the state you're coming from doesn't have reciprocity with Tennessee, because California didn't. So just a little tip.
That's good to know.
It was good. I loved
Aren't
it
we
out
also
there.
now in Georgia? And
Nope. That's coming up, though.
Mm-mm.
Yeah, absolutely. That's probably, okay, the answer is the odds are like 99.9%. We're going to cover all the coast.
Kind of like a DNA test.
Yes.
Maybe.
Well,
Maybe.
I
we'll
never
do
do.
that.
I never say we're going to do it. We're supposed to be in Philadelphia by now. We're still not there. You know, I mean, so who knows? They all say they're going to add us, and thanks, Joe Sparra, our affiliates relations guy. We like to acknowledge those people that work hard for us. Thank you, Joe.
I will say this, that Georgia kind of comes up against North Georgia, comes up against the bottom part of Tennessee, and given where Springfield is, it's north of Nashville. That signal may make it down to Georgia. So
that's exactly
so
right.
it may they may bleed over there. So.
Remember, we're talking about general topics of law. Remember, talk to your attorney if you have any legal issues. Do not listen to us and use us to go before the judge and say, Todd, Denise, or Fred said as follows. Again, we always say this, and we'll repeat it for you, those of you people in Springfield, Tennessee. this is the best show in the world to use at Christmas time around the dinner table with your in-laws. Remember, it's important to say when, look, Radio Law Talk said, when your in-laws say, they say. It's the, well, let me tell you, they say, no, Radio Law Talk says it. That's the only time you can use us as a reference. So there you go. We're going to do a case or no case. We're going to talk about the Arizona teacher that is getting 20 years in prison. This is really interesting, and we're going to bring that up at the end of the hour. So hang on. Why is this interesting to us? And to us as lawyers, it sounds very morbid the way we say stuff like that, but it's interesting because we eat the law, and we love to look at and analyze the law. And is 20 years too much, Denise? Is that too excessive in Arizona? And we're going to bring up some examples of other cases, not exact, but fairly similar, and what those individuals received as a punishment in their state. And you're going to ask yourself, should this teacher get 20 years? Was that excessive, or was it not enough? R. Kelly's arrested. We're going to talk about R. Kelly again, apparently in New York now on federal charges because he was brought up on state charges in Chicago, and then we're going to talk about that. And what Denise was saying earlier, Denise, we were talking about him. The Kevin Spacey case is getting better as an interesting. This is so interesting that you're going to want to wait and hear what's going on with Kevin Spacey's criminal case against him back east. And the evidence that has just come out is very interesting. We're also going to talk about a man that was sentenced for stealing Marilyn Monroe's statue. We've got to talk about that. So I don't know what people are thinking about, but how do you steal Marilyn Monroe's statue? But other than that, we do the most important thing, who someone complained to me the other day about, that why it takes us so long to get to case or no case. But Cal, let's just roll our first case or no case for the people of Tennessee.
Now it's time to play Case or No Case.
I want to remind you that these may or may not be actual cases, and they are my interpretation and representation of them, and I waive myself of any liability if I get it wrong.
Boy.
Okay, so here we go. Case or no case. Edwina and Norm got married. They lived in the state of Nebraska, Kearney, Nebraska. Things were going along just fine. And then Norm got the 7-year itch. Edwina, Eddie as he called her, he said, I want to move to Oregon and live by the ocean. Edwina said, well, if you move there, it's going to be without me because all my family lives right here in Kearney. Norm's did too, but he didn't care. Enough of these Nebraska flatlands, he said, and he moved to Seaside, Oregon, and she filed for divorce, which was just fine, but because she said in her initial complaint, besides her other obvious abandonment, Norm was a noisy eater and had bad gas. Anyway, Edwina decided she wanted more than just a divorce, though. She wanted a refund on her wedding pictures and video because she no longer needed them. And she was sick of seeing Norm's face every time she opened up the cedar chest. She got out her contract, read it very carefully, including the no-fault guarantee clause, and sent out a kindly letter explaining her circumstances to Out-of-the-Box Imagery in Kearney, Nebraska. Said she'd like a refund check for $2,234.16 right away, if you wouldn't mind, because I'm going to Texas for the winter. Kirsten, the owner, ignored the first 2 letters, thinking it was a joke, but then a 3rd letter came. That was a little more serious. And so I ask you, case or no case? And we don't have a lot of time, so what I'd like to do, with your permission, is I'd like you to mull this thing over just a little bit. Fred, what
how much time do we have left? Because I'm going to ask
you
a quick question.
We have about 30 seconds. Go
ahead.
Go ahead.
One quick question
is
the no-fault guarantee clause. I guess you don't have the information on that. So.
I just know that's the clause that she used to talk about getting counsel to see what she could do.
Okay, well, was Norm handsome?
Well, Edwina thought so off the bat, but then she apparently changed her mind about her stinky husband.
All right, we'll be right back after this about the stinky Norm.
Stay tuned. There's much more Radio Law Talk coming up.
All advertising for legal services on Radio Law Talk is strictly for the state or states in which the advertiser is licensed. For more information, go to radiolawtalk.com.
Know someone with a drinking or drug problem? Learn how to get sober after we share these stories.
I was 35 with 2 beautiful children when my life and addiction started to spiral out of control. After my divorce, I went into a depression cycle and started drinking more often and using prescription drugs. After my second DWI and arrest, my ex-husband threatened to take our children away from me.
I was 17 when I became addicted to heroin and meth. I thought I could quit on my own, but I couldn't. It hit me when I was arrested.
Get sober now. Your private insurance may cover costs and we'll get you here. It's simple. Just call Elite Rehab Placement right now. Please, don't wait. Your life matters to us. 800-918-1376. 800-918-1376. 800-918-1376. That's 800-918-1376.
Not all law firms have extensive experience in all areas of the law. It's wise to look for firms that have knowledge and understanding in your particular area of concern. So go to prolawfirms.com. They have listings of attorneys in key areas of practice, such as family law, estate planning, personal injury, bankruptcy, and so forth. When you're looking for a lawyer that has extensive experience in your particular area of need, go to prolawfirms.com. That's prolawfirms.com.
ProLawFirms.com is not a law firm and does not endorse or recommend any specific law firm.
If you're one of those independent people who wants your own business and you love food service, we just might have a great opportunity for you. Iceberg Drive-Ins. Iceberg is famous for its thick shakes and delicious food. We lend you our supply chain and expertise, and you can potentially have a thriving, successful, fun business that your customers will love. Iceberg Drive-Ins has some prime areas available right now, so if you're interested, get in touch with us right away. Go to icebergdrivein.com and click on the Contact Us button. Iceberg Drive-In, ready to grow with you.
All right, guys, we need to have you read some lines for our disclaimer promo, but first, can anybody tell me what a disclaimer is? Right then. Well, Denise, you go ahead.
Non uti concilius me oriere proquestis purpurium juris consult.
Latin, that's a nice touch. Thank you, Denise. Next time we'll try it in English if that's okay. Fred, how about you?
Cal, I don't want to read all this. Can't we just tell the people that we're discussing general legal issues and they should hire their own attorney instead of relying on what we have to say here?
Well, we could, I guess. Chris?
I'm not going to be there anyway. Why have me do it?
Let's have Todd do it.
Me? Read disclaimers? Why, I couldn't. The information you hear on Radio Law Talk is general.
The preceding promo was for entertainment purposes only. And if you want true legal advice, contact your own lawyer. Just a tip from your friends at Radio Law Talk.
Be sure to read our disclaimers on radio.
Even in the hustle and noise of this modern world, we feel the pull of the forest. To walk under the canopy and feel transformed. National forests are essential to life. Majestic and grand, they clean our air, supply drinking water to millions, and provide homes to countless wildlife. They fuel our imaginations, inspiring us to think big, and now's the time to do just that. Fires and natural disasters devastate our forests each year. That's why we're replanting millions of new trees across the country. The Arbor Day Foundation needs your help. We've heard the call of the wild, and we've answered. Scientists, foresters, volunteers, and members, together we can preserve and protect our heritage and legacy. We must act now so that the generations of today and tomorrow can continue to depend on our forests. Visit arborday.org. See how you can help.
Radio Law Talk. I like that show.
You're listening to Radio Law Talk. And now back to the show.
What do you think, Springfield, Tennessee? 800-855-LAW-RADIO or tweet us at Radio Law Talk. What do you think about Norm, his smelly probably breath and other things that he did that was not attractive enough for his wife to follow him to Seaside, Oregon, which, by the way, I'm sure Denise has, but I've been to Seaside, Oregon. It is a beautiful town.
That's what they say.
It's gorgeous.
I've never been to. I think I went to the Oregon coast once when I was very young, but I don't have a recall of it. Yeah.
It's very different than California. It's dramatic.
Yeah.
That's how you would have to describe
Huge
that.
rocks and big,
and cliffs.
Yeah,
and
cliffs and big waves.
Waves crashing.
Crashing.
And cold? Is it colder?
It is. Yeah.
I mean, there's a reason why Surfin' USA by the Beach Boys did not mention any beaches in Oregon.
Fair point.
So,
okay.
Or Tennessee? Did they mention any in Tennessee?
Well, it's kind of hard to surf on a lake.
I don't know. Nowadays they got boats that'll pull you can surf on.
Well, that's true. That's true. But, only lakes and rivers in Tennessee. They don't, last time I checked, they don't. I don't know. Common Core's coming out, so that might be a little different. So.
Yeah. What's up, Cal? What do you think?
Well, the real question is, I think I want to start with you, Fred. So,
okay.
Give me a sense of whether you think this no-fault clause would entitle her to any sort of a refund because, after all, it was less than 10 years. Notice a no-fault clause.
Right.
Less than 10 years, and the marriage broke up. So she says, I would like a refund, please.
So just to recap, Norm is moving to Seaside. His wife's divorcing him. She says, look, I want to go get the refund from my wedding photographer that did videos and did pictures because they have a no-fault guarantee clause in their contract, which I have absolutely no idea what the no-fault guarantee clause says in it.
Nor do I.
So nor do you. So that makes it difficult to opine on this, but I'm going to do the following. First of all, this is a true scenario. Second of all, there was no case filed in this thing. Therefore, true scenario, no case filed.
Okay.
It all depends on the no-fault guarantee, what that means. But I don't see if there's a case filed. Since there's no case filed, there's nothing to talk about.
So you are saying this is no case, and that's pretty much it?
No, it was a real scenario.
Real story, but
there was
no
no
case.
lawsuit.
Okay.
No lawsuit was filed.
Okay. Let's go to Todd. Going to the dealer's left. Mr. Cunin, what say you?
It was tempting when I heard these facts originally, and I paid absolutely complete attention while you were giving those. I've had absolutely no assistance from my partners at the break here about what the facts were. Sorry, I've been
facing the cell phone
things.
and talking among yourselves. Yes.
But at first blush, my thought was, well, let's assume it was a case, and if you look at this and try to assume whether or not she would have even a snowball's chance in HE double hockey sticks of being able to prevail on this, and I don't think that she would based upon this, and somehow that means that there was nothing filed, that there was no lawsuit, and then I recalled this advice that I've heard my whole legal career. There is no way to insulate against a lawsuit being filed. Anybody can file anything. It's whether or not you have a defense to it, right? You've seen some pretty crazy stuff out there. And in this case, I don't see how she would collect no-fault guarantee. Look, I don't think that a no-fault guarantee in a photography contract is going to guarantee that the marriage is going to be successful given a national divorce rate near 50% or whatever it is. I mean, that would be ridiculous. Talk about having a business model that ensures your defeat. So I'm going to say, yes, this is a case.
A case or a scenario?
This is a case, a scenario, and I'm even going to go ahead so far as to say that something was filed, but it never ended up being a judicial or administrative or whatever determination. There was some sort of resolution up to and including a flat-out dismissal because you have no case. But I am going to say something was filed, and the photography studio ends up having to pay zilch.
All right. Ms. Dirks, what say you?
Well, I say that the no-fault guarantee clause was not one of indefinite duration, that what probably was good for, 30 days maybe, or good for
10 years.
The no-fault guarantee clause was good for 10 years?
Well, that's the scenario I'm proposing, 10 years.
Well, there's no way.
I mean, you get out because of fading and so on in photographs. So, there's you get out a picture and it's faded, and you can go get a new one for nothing.
Oh, but that's all the guarantee is to give new ones. She's not going to want new ones. So I guess I'm going to have to say no case.
No case.
All righty. Give it to us, Cal.
Well, it's interesting because I'm not sure how to score this now because it's really.
You're the one that picked it.
I know, right? It's really fascinating because if I were to just simply tell you that I made the whole thing up, but Fred said he thought it's a real scenario. So if that were the case, how would I score that?
Oh, I still get points.
He still gets points
I said
if
no
it's no case.
Okay, so Fred gets one. Okay.
So it's no case.
Those of you who say it was a case, there you go. Okay, there we go. So sorry, Todd.
That's
okay. All right. Those of you who say it was a real scenario.
Denise is back.
Thanks to
I
Seth.
made the whole stinking thing up out of complete whole cloth. But next hour, I do have another wedding photography case. I mean, we're coming out of June. I've found a couple of extra wedding cases, so I thought I would bring them up now.
I've been doing those.
What does that have to do with R. Kelly?
Well, you'll find. Did R. Kelly take any photographs and charge anybody for them? That's
Probably.
The real question.
I think there were videos.
I don't know if he charged anybody for them.
There are videos.
Yes.
Well, I know he's going to get charged with something. All right, and that, ladies and gentlemen, is case or no case. Denise, you get 2. Fred, you get 1. Mr. Cunin, you have 0, which means our score is Fred 16, Denise 14, Todd 15.
Ooh, we're tight. It's
and that's
tight.
where we
Oh
stand.
my gosh, I got points while I was gone.
Yeah.
Well, we had a guy play for you.
Seth donated all of his points to you instead of Fred. You came out pretty good.
And by the way, that was
thanks,
that was 4 points last week. 4 points. Yeah.
Hey, we're going to talk about R. Kelly being arrested in Chicago on federal charges of child pornography, et cetera, et cetera. Now, don't forget, R. Kelly is a rapper. He's in his 50s. The most famous thing recently he's done, he was on television and gave an interview about all these allegations. And we're going to come back and talk about them and see the latest charges. We'll be right back. I'm Fred Penny, your host of Radio Law Talk.
All advertising for legal services on Radio Law Talk is strictly for the state or states in which the advertiser is licensed. For more information, go to radiolawtalk.com. All advertising for legal services on Radio Law Talk is strictly for the state.
Warning, don't let your business get left behind in what is likely to be the biggest economic boom in recent history. If you need to build for your business to grow, call General Steel today for a pre-engineered steel building designed for your needs. No wasted space. Steel prices are expected to rise, but you can still lock in your price on a General Steel building. And you can still save as much as half the cost and time of conventional construction. As much as half. But you must call now. If you need a church building, office, warehouse, manufacturing space, retail space, or more, call General Steel today. You can still get the General's 50-year structural warranty and General Steel quality, all at a price you can afford. So don't let rising steel prices put your project out of reach and stop you from making your company great.
800-617-9312. 800-617-9312. 800-617-9312. That's 800-617-9312.
Hi, my name is Lily. My mom and dad used to fight about money all the time. Then one day, I heard them talking about this guy, some uncle I never knew, called Uncle Sam. Well, they say this Uncle Sam guy wanted them to pay him like $1 gazillion, and they didn't have $1 gazillion. So they called this company they heard on the radio called the Tax Doctor. And the Tax Doctor worked with Uncle Sam's people. I think they're called the IRS. And they're able to work it out so my mom and dad didn't have to pay Uncle Sam very much money at all. So now mom and dad are happy, and I'm happy too. Thanks, Tax Doctor.
If you owe $10,000 or more to the IRS or state, call now and pay less. 800-263-2610. 800-263-2610. That's 800-2...
Is this real life?
This is Radio Law Talk.
And we are back. Cal, I got the universal someone's on the line signal from you. What do we have?
Well, we have David on the telephone. He has a question about the Epstein matter that I thought you might find interesting. So he's from California and has a question for us. David, good morning. Welcome to Radio Law Talk.
Oh, morning. Hey, are you in the Eastern Zone? It's now afternoon for you, huh?
Yeah, wherever you may be.
Yeah, good. Yeah, I noticed, I was watching one of the news broadcasts about Epstein, and they were saying that there's no proof through the Security Exchange Commission that he ever had any kind of, was it a Series 7 or a Series 9 brokerage license? And have you, one of the odd comments that came up was that during 9/11, the Security Exchange Commission's office, I think that was in Building 7, so during the dropping of the towers on 9/11, Building 7 fell, and that would have destroyed Jeffrey Epstein's license, that it was held inside.
So proof of that would have gone down with the building, in other words.
Right, and that doesn't make any sense, because a federal license like that, you would think that D.C. would have a copy too.
Well, it'd be on microfiche somewhere.
Somewhere, or on a hard drive. Well, David,
Yes.
David, thank you. We'll let Denise and Todd ruminate on your good question. Thanks so much for calling.
Thank you very much, David. Yes, that does raise an interesting question. This concept of what happens if we can destroy a record is something that we often heard in the criminal context in my practice. What if I can get the DA's file? Well, in order to make a criminal case go away, you'd have to get the DA's file, you'd have to get the court's file, you'd have to go and get all of the files from the police department, the investigating agency. It's not one thing that's stored in one area. And I would have to assume that the same thing is true, not just whether somebody was able to foresee the tragedy of 9/11, that specific event, you would have to assume that a government agency would be able to foresee something happening to files kept at one location, whether they be corrupt or fire or something, and having backups stored somewhere. Denise, what do you think?
Well, I totally agree with you. There's going to be a backup. There's going to be microfiche in other places, microfilm, in other places. And I think that you can't totally destroy it. Even back in 2001, when 9/11 happened, we did have backup capabilities, and we were backing up very habitually our data.
This sounds like a plot out of an old radio show. Well, the sheriff's office burned down, so nobody's getting arrested today. I mean, doesn't it really sound like something that could happen in a truly analog time that is far less likely to happen now?
It's part of the conspiracy theory, too. There is a conspiracy theory out there about Building 7, that it was purposely imploded, because if you see it, it didn't get hit by anything. There was no reason for it to go, and it went down very carefully, very structurally, and it looked like it was imploded. So there is this theory out there. The owner of this building was alleged to be something that the vice president at the time was involved with. It was overinsured. I mean, there's like really all these conspiracy stuff going on, and it sounds like maybe he is connecting Epstein to that part of that conspiracy.
Well, the thing to keep in mind also that is, in addition to government agencies keeping copies of their records of licenses that they have administered, you also have to, in the case of Mr. Epstein, and of all people, you would never want to be on the position of defending him in anything. But I will, in this limited case about his license, Mr. Epstein would also have copies of whatever was given to him authorizing him to perform whatever financial services he performed. You get that in the mail. I get a bar card every year from the California State Bar. I got my diploma. I've got all the things that qualify me to do what I do as a lawyer, and arguably he would have those same things given to him. So if everything was lost, heaven forbid, but if everything was gone, assuming there was no microfilm, nothing, you would have to assume that Mr. Epstein still had his documentation of what he was allowed to do, and upon presentation of that, assuming that people were not able to prove that it was fraudulently procured, he'd be able to say, hey, I got a license to do this.
But I think our caller's suggesting that it might have been in Epstein's interest to say, well, yeah, I lost my card, and, the building fell down. I don't know what to tell you. I had a license. I really did.
I do think that's what he's saying.
Yeah.
And we're going to find out a lot about what Epstein says about a fraudulent passport, perhaps. We're going to find out about some other things. And he's just been now indicted, and he has been denied bail, but he's still innocent until proven guilty.
He is.
And we got to keep that in mind as we talk about him, that we need to recognize the fact that we need to presume his innocence.
Charges, allegations, and presumptions. And there's a
Yes.
lot of, because everybody says, well, it's amazing what money can buy you, and it is.
Well, that's a
Right?
nice segue. That's a nice segue into what we're going to talk about about Kevin Spacey.
Yes.
And here's why I say that. So we covered this case with Kevin Spacey. We've done, I think,
Last week.
We've done a couple of episodes on it, but last week with developments in the case to get you up to speed, he was being prosecuted in Nantucket for a sexual battery, assault-type behavior against, at the time, an 18-year-old male victim. The argument or the allegations were that he, without consent of the victim, groped the genitalia over the clothing and just engaged in this kind of behavior. Now, when this news broke, initially, it was above the fold headlines. For those of you that used to read newspapers, it would be, if the newspaper's laying flat down, it would be something you would see on the headline in a stack of newspapers that were ready to be delivered. It was above the fold print, Kevin Spacey facing charges in Nantucket, and the allegations were out there, and everybody talked about what he was charged with, right?
Right, and the clever newspapers would have a headline, "There once was an actor in Nantucket."
Yes, that would be interesting.
Who put his hand where he stuck it.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly.
The boy made a claim. It turned out to be lame, and Kevin Spacey
Yeah. Okay.
said,
I'm sorry I brought it
whatever.
up. Okay.
So, but that's what happened when the claim came out, the allegation. This week, we get additional news about that case, and guess what? It was dismissed. It was dismissed. We'll talk about the grounds, but it was dismissed. But the most I could see in terms of the publication of the dismissal was small print at the very bottom of the website that I was on. It was not above the fold news of the dismissal. They didn't publish the dismissal to the same degree they published the allegations, but that's what happens. And Denise, we'll talk about what was the basis here.
But dismissals aren't sexy, though, guys.
That's true.
Well, kind of. This one was. I like this one a lot because this is when you have a total, complete failure of evidence. And that was what was exciting. Now, remember, when you do the preliminary hearing, you present the evidence, right? You get all this evidence in that may not come in at trial. When they got to trial, not only did they find that the pictures and the text messages that were sent by the alleged victim were gone, missing, but the entire phone was gone. That is the single most important, best evidence that existed in that trial, except for the testimony of the alleged victim. Now, what happened with the testimony of the alleged victim? Well, he starts to talk about erasing things on his phone that he didn't and all that, and found out that if he had done that and admitted to that, that's a felony. His mom had already admitted to doing that, and he didn't want to face a felony, so he pled the fifth. What happens in a criminal case when you plead the fifth is your entire testimony is stricken, and that's a complete failure of testimony. So not only was there a failure of evidence, there was a failure of any credible witness that could testify. That's it.
Absolutely. We're going to talk a little bit about the timeline. We're coming up on a break here, but just to let you know, the case got started earlier this year in Nantucket. It was in the middle of a preliminary hearing recently, and that's where these issues started to come out at the preliminary hearing. And then the court made a ruling towards the end of the preliminary hearing, and based upon the court's ruling, the prosecution made a decision about the case. And we'll talk about that when we come back. We're coming up on the break here. If you want to participate, by all means, call in. Denise, the number is
855-529-7234. It's also 855-LAW-RADIO.
Be like Dave. Call in with your questions. We'll be happy to answer them.
Be like people all across the country and listen to Radio Law Talk on radiolawtalk.com or on your favorite radio station. You stay right there There's much more Radio Law Talk coming right up.
Advertising for legal services on Radio Law Talk is strictly for the state or states in which the advertiser is licensed. For more information, go to radiolawtalk.com.
Know someone with a drinking or drug problem? Learn how to get sober after we share these stories.
I was 35 with 2 beautiful children when my life and addiction started to spiral out of control. After my divorce, I went into a depression cycle and started drinking more often and using prescription drugs. After my second DWI and arrest, my ex-husband threatened to take our children away from me.
I was 17 when I became addicted to heroin and meth. I thought I could quit on my own, but I couldn't. It hit me when I was arrested.
Get sober now. Your private insurance may cover costs and we'll get you here. It's simple. Just call Elite Rehab Placement right now. Please, don't wait. Your life matters to us. 800-918-1376. 800-918-1376. 800-918-1376. That's 800-918-1376.
Jason Rosbach here with Fred Penny, managing attorney from Penny & Associates Injury Lawyers. Now, Fred, what type of cases are you dealing with now, and what sets you apart?
Jason, we help people with all types of personal injury cases. We're former insurance company trial lawyers. We understand the other side, which gives us a distinct advantage over our competition. Remember, we don't get paid unless we win.
That's Penny & Associates Injury Lawyers with locations throughout California. For a free consultation, go to pennylawyers.com or give them a call, 1-800-616-4LAW. That's PENNEY lawyers.com.
This is Denise Dirks. We can represent clients in divorce, legal separation, child and spousal support, custody, termination of parental rights, step-parent adoptions, guardianships, and even conservatorship matters. Call 1-877-886-7186 for a consultation.
The law offices of Denise L. Dirks provide family law services in Northern California. When the law affects your family, call 877-886-7186. The family of attorneys at Denise L. Dirks is here to help.
Many women have so many clothes in the closet, but then we go to get dressed and find we have nothing to wear. We've all been there. We all want to be comfortable and fashionable at the same time, and it's difficult to find clothing that makes that task effortless. But at Letty & Company, you can find trendy, comfortable clothing that is affordable, things you'll want to wear every day. Shop with a purpose, online with free shipping. Just go to LETTYandcompany.com. LettyandCompany.com.
If you're one of those independent people who wants your own business and you love food service, we just might have a great opportunity for you. Iceberg Drive-Ins. Iceberg is famous for its thick shakes and delicious food. We lend you our supply chain and expertise, and you can potentially have a thriving, successful, fun business that your customers will love. Iceberg Drive-Ins has some prime areas available right now, so if you're interested, get in touch with us right away. Go to icebergdrivein.com and click on the Contact Us button. Iceberg Drive-In, ready to grow with you.
I am Cameron Levitt, Chief Operating Officer of Concussion Medical Clinic. California's first concussion medical clinic is now open. As concussions increase each year, there has never been a greater need for concussion specialists. Our physicians at Concussion Medical Clinic are board certified in pediatric neurology and sports medicine and have partnered with universities, hospitals, and rehab clinics to expedite the recovery process. Simply put, we are elevating the standard of care. When you need an expert concussion opinion or concussion care, visit concussionmedicalclinic.com to schedule your appointment.
I've got to get my car washed. This dirt, it just won't do. But I don't have no time today. I don't know what I do.
Man, I know this place right down the road. Quick Quack Car Wash. Hop inside, let's take a ride and watch this cat and shine. Just come and see, I guarantee your ride will steal the show. Come on, Quick Quack Car Wash. Don't drive that dirty car. Quick Quack.
You're listening to Radio Law Talk. And now back to the show. Radio Law Talk.
So in Nantucket, Kevin Spacey gets a dismissal of the criminal case. Denise and I were talking about this at the break, and Denise was laying it out here as we went into the break. And, What happened was the case got started. It was at the preliminary hearing, and some odd things came out at the preliminary hearing. The defense raised some questions. There was information taken from the victim's cell phone, the alleged victim's cell phone, text messages, but they seemed to be out of context. And so the defense wanted the entire cell phone so they could look at it to fill in the gaps. And, well, law enforcement didn't have it. They didn't have a Cellbrite report where basically a forensic download of the entire cell phone, or so they said. And when they went to go ask the victim for it, they couldn't find it.
Right. The investigator said he gave it to the victim's father. The victim's father says he never received it, didn't know where it was. And all of a sudden this phone that was important not just to the criminal case, but would have been very important also to this civil case that the alleged victim brought against Mr. Spacey. And what's interesting here is that I think, I've been reading between the lines, if once he filed the civil case, I think the police investigator gave back the phone because of the civil case, because normally they would not. They wouldn't break that chain of custody.
That's right. I've been involved in many criminal cases as both a prosecutor and a defense attorney. And as a prosecutor, it was very common to have a cell phone seized in the course of a case, and somebody calls and says, hey, can I get my phone back? And you'd have to say, yeah, when we're done with the case, but I can't give it to you right now. And after the issue with the cell phone came up, the victim's mother, admitted that she had deleted some photos that she called like frat boy style photos that might be embarrassing to the victim. Nobody admitted anything regarding deletion of text messages. But once you have the admission that something had been deleted and altered, that raises the concern that other stuff may have happened. And when it was pointed out, I believe, on the stand to the victim who was testifying, when it was pointed out to him that it is as Denise said, a felony to delete stuff from the phone. I mean, you're destroying evidence. All of a sudden, he doesn't want to answer any more questions. He pleads the fifth because he doesn't want to get in trouble. And as Denise said, all of his evidence goes away. And the judge made an interesting comment when ruling on the preliminary hearing, which he said basically to the prosecution, you can go forward, but without him, you don't have a whole lot. Cal.
How many naughty prosecutor words do you suppose were spoken in the meeting when they realized that this case that was bringing them national attention all of a sudden blew up in their faces?
Oh, I think there's a huge embarrassment, to be really candid with you, because the chain of custody is the prosecution's burden.
Right.
And so you're looking at that was a big, huge failure. But the alleged victim here had previously dismissed his civil case.
That's right.
So that was dismissed with prejudice. We don't know if there was a backdoor settlement.
What does with prejudice mean? What does that mean? What does with prejudice mean?
If you dismiss with prejudice, it means you cannot bring it ever again. It's done. It's as if it was litigated on the merits. If you dismiss it without prejudice, you can bring it again, provided that you're not beyond a statute of limitations issue.
I'll give you an example. Let's say that a complaint is not drafted technically correctly, and the court grants a demur, where basically the court says this complaint is not sufficient to go forward on because of the way it was drafted, but the demur is granted without prejudice, meaning you're free to amend and you can keep the case going if you clean up the language in the complaint. A case can sometimes be dismissed, but you can refile it if you clean everything up. But if it's dismissed with prejudice, you're done.
That's right.
Yes.
And I have a question for you, Todd.
Okay.
And this is a civil kind of a question, but I'm very curious. I don't suppose that Mr. Spacey is going to actually sue, but does he have a claim for defamation against this alleged victim?
I think technically he does. I agree with you. I don't think that in a case like this that Spacey would want the publicity to go after him.
Would you, as a prosecutor, try to preclude that from occurring?
Well, that's an interesting question, because that's a dicey area for prosecutors. I'll give you a scenario. Some people would think it would be common. Let's say the prosecutor is getting ready to dismiss the Spacey lawsuit, calls up the defense attorney, says, look, we're going to dismiss this case. But right now the victim is really worried that Spacey is going to go back and sue him for defamation because he didn't testify, and the whole thing got started, and, can we get an assurance? Look, we'll dismiss the case if Spacey will agree just not to sue him civilly, and everybody will go forward. Let's say that happened. And I want to state unequivocally, we don't know that this happened. This is merely a hypothetical. Would it be appropriate for the prosecutor to pick up the phone just to try to make everything go away, to help out the victim, to do that? And the answer is no, it would not be appropriate. That violates an ethical principle, an ethical rule for attorneys, the ethical rule being that you are not to use the resolution of a criminal case, criminal charges, whether it's threatening an action being brought or the resolution of an action pending, you are not to use that as leverage to resolve a pending or proposed civil case. They are separate. So it would be inappropriate for the prosecutor to approach the defense attorney to say this, okay? It wouldn't necessarily be inappropriate for the defense. It wouldn't necessarily be inappropriate for the defense or for Spacey to propose it of his own, but you can't use that as leverage. Similarly, if Spacey had a civil attorney and the civil attorney was talking to the civil attorney, you just can't use the criminal proceedings as a way to try to leverage the result or a resolution of a civil case.
Right, and one thing we would hope that would happen is that the alleged victim's civil attorney, when they dismiss with prejudice, that they got that kind of assurance from Mr. Spacey that he wasn't going to sue. Hopefully that happened to give them some protection. Why do I care about that? Because I just feel like alleged victims sometimes can take a harsh road, especially when there's a complete and total failure of evidence.
That is true. And so that kind of wraps up the Spacey case. And while we're on the issue here of trial, we got about 3 minutes left. Denise, I want to ask you a question. What is the strangest thing that has ever occurred to you that you've seen in a trial?
Okay, so this is not a joke. This is absolutely something that happened. I had a good friend who was an attorney. We were on opposite sides of the case. The case involved really super strong issues like whether or not there was a perpetrator of domestic violence and whether they should have custody of their child or not. So a very important issue. And she comes over to me during the trial and she goes, "Go look at Exhibit 44." And I said, "What's Exhibit 44?" And she goes, "Just go take a look at it." So I go over to the table where the exhibits are. I look at Exhibit 44, and it's a picture of my much younger client. My client's clearly older than that. And the expression that comes to mind is hung like a horse. And I was stunned. It took me a second. Everybody's in the courtroom, the judge and everybody, right? So I took care of it very carefully. When her client's on the stand, I took that exhibit. I said, "Is this a picture of my client?" And she said yes, and she was very surprised. So this is the other party. She was very surprised to see it, and I said, "This is when my client was not married to you, correct?" "Yes." "This is one of his older pictures, correct?" "Yes." "Well, it's really his property, isn't it?" "Yes." "Is it okay if I give it back to my client?" "Yes." The judge never saw it. The client was, or the opposing party was like really shattered by that. It helped me in my case, and it was taken care of. I was kind of proud of how I did that. Do you have any experience?
Oh my gosh. Yeah, really quickly, we had just finished a very contentious sexually violent predator commitment trial. And at the very end, the jury's got the case. They're deciding it. The judge says, "Hey, Mr. Cunin, can you pop in here?" I had to go on the heels of that case and stand as a witness while the judge performed a marriage for the clerk and her boyfriend, where the defense attorney and I were on either side as witnesses of that wedding. Strange stuff. Cal, take us out.
Only in a small town, right? I mean,
yes.
There you go. All right, folks. Well, that's this hour of Radio Law Talk. We remind you we broadcast live for 3 hours, 9 to noon Pacific time. So if you can't catch them on your current radio station, you can download our podcast and listen to it that way, or you can listen to us live 9 to noon Pacific. We'll see you next time on Radio Law Talk.
You have
been listening to RadioLawTalk.com, a copyrighted presentation of Radio Law Talk Incorporated.
Of 50 and considering buying an annuity in the next 60 days, I have some important news for you. Don't buy an annuity until you understand the pros and cons of annuities. A free book to help you maximize your retirement income from television host and three-time author Josh Melberg has been released. This book reveals little-known truths about annuity strategies in simple-to-understand terms. Grab a pen right now because we are about to offer you this free book that unlocks the 5 little-known secrets we believe baby boomers and seniors should know before buying an annuity. Call 800-985-1813 now, and you'll receive a free copy of Josh Melberg's book, Next Gen Annuity Strategies Revealed. As a bonus, we'll also send you a copy of The #1 Mistakes Retirees Are Making with Their Investments Today, and a free DVD on how you can get up to 33% more income in retirement. Call 800-985-1813 now. Again, that's 800-985-1813. Employees of J.D. Melberg Financial have the appropriate licenses for the products they offer.